I want to welcome everybody. Thank you all for coming. This is a wonderful crowd. It's very, very exciting. I'm John Master, the director of the Emory College Language Center, and this is our first teaching tips and tactics of the spring semester. I'm very grateful to Hong Lee and Christine Rastino. There you are, Christine, in the tile. We have so many tiles, it's hard to find you, for leading this session today. They are frequent collaborators, and I want to start with the most recent and the most spectacular one with Pandemic Noodles, Emory East Meets West, a pandemic cookbook from students in quarantine. So that was really, that made it all the way to the AJC, so you know you're doing something right. Hong Lee, you all know Hong. I don't need to introduce Hong, but I will anyway, because she deserves infinite praise. Hong Lee is a professor of pedagogy in the Department of Russian and East Asian Languages, and her focus is Chinese language and culture. I will say that Hong Lee just concluded 2 extremely successful terms as director of the Language Center. She teaches Chinese language courses at all levels, as well as courses on Chinese culture and Chinese linguistics. Her research interests and publications lie in the area of Chinese language pedagogy, second language acquisition, and Chinese syntax. She's published articles and book chapters in venues such as the Journal of Chinese Teachers Association and MLA volumes. Now, Christine Rastino is a senior lecturer in Italian. She teaches Italian literature, culture, and language classes. She's co-authored Lucrezia Marinella and the Querelle des Femmes in 17th century Italy with Fairleigh Dickinson Press, as well as the first edition of a book series called The Italian Virtual Class. Dr. Rastino is also the author of All the Silent Spaces, a memoir published in 2019 that confronts the topics of violence, identity, and discrimination. Christine Rastino has been a member of the Emory College faculty since the aughts, and in the decade that I have known her, has devoted herself in an exemplary fashion to supporting social justice causes at Emory. So I'm very excited to have these 2 team up. You kind of are ultimately gonna have to take this on the road or something like this, one of those duos for building resilience, a very timely topic, building resilience and connection during the pandemic. So Hong and Christine, thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
What an honor.
Thank you, John and Sarah, for hosting us. And first of all, I want to wish everybody a happy Chinese New Year, and let's all hope that the year of ox is better than the year of rats. So in this presentation, Christine and I are going to focus on our course that we co-teach online in the summer. It is called Noodle Narratives on the Silk Road, an exploration of Chinese and Italian cultures through the noodles. Okay. So we're going to first briefly introduce trauma-informed pedagogy, and also the principles for trauma-informed teaching and learning, and the principles for building resilience. And we're going to then ask a set of questions. I just shared the Google slides, so we want to get some input from all of you. And then we are going to share some information, just how we teach our class in the summer. If I use a Chinese proverb, which is to throw a brick with the hope of attracting jade. So what we are hoping is to, get your feedback, get your suggestions, and together we can all do better in this virtual environment. So first, I'm going to start with the trauma-informed pedagogy. We are actually referring to trauma-informed teaching and learning, which was proposed by Janice Corello. And it was based on trauma-informed care and its 5 principles. They are safety, choice, collaboration, trustworthiness, and empowerment. According to Corello, to be trauma-informed in the context of teaching and learning, first of all, it means that we need to understand the ways in which violence, victimization, and other forms of trauma can impact all classroom members. And secondly, to use that understanding to inform course content, policies, and practices for 2 main purposes. The first purpose is to minimize the possibilities of re-traumatization and re-victimization. And then the second purpose is to maximize the possibility for educational success. She proposed 8 principles for trauma-informed teaching and learning, which are on the second slide, if I remember right. So the first principle is physical, emotional, social, and academic safety. Second, trustworthiness and transparency. 3, support and connection. 4, inclusiveness and shared purpose. 5, collaboration and mutuality. 6, empowerment, voice, and choice. 7, cultural, historical, and gender issues. And lastly, growth and change.
Thank you so much, Han. See, there are so many reasons why I love working with Han, including Proverbs and food.
Yes.
So I want to move on to the 7 principles of resilience. And there's a doctor, Dr. Ginsburg, who is a child pediatrician and human development expert. And Dr. Ginsburg proposed that there are 7 integral and interrelated components that make up being resilient. So one is competence. If somebody feels competent in something, they feel more resilient. They feel able to confront more things. Confidence, again, competence and confidence seem to be a bit related. If you're young people, if they have confidence, then they are better able to navigate the world, think outside of the box, and recover from challenges. Connection is a big one. And there have been a lot of studies on families that eat together and how those families are more resilient as a result of eating and spending time together and connecting. So connection makes people feel more resilient, probably because they're listening to each other, they're meeting each other's eyes, and they're surviving things. They're talking about things that are going on in their lives and coming up with solutions together. Character. People who have kind of a sense of what's right and wrong in their own lives, what's right and wrong for them. They feel it deep inside. You know, what maybe they don't want to do something and they feel it in their stomachs and they don't do it as a result. That leads to resiliency as well. And I feel like that is connected a bit to self-knowledge as well. And contribution. People who contribute to something, they feel more resilient. And here's a really good example of that. There was a study done on some groups of people, and some of them worked 40 hours a week at a job that they didn't really like. And then there was another group of people that worked 60 hours a week or more at a job that they were passionate about, and they felt like they were actually doing something important and changing the world. And they took all of their bodily measurements, like they checked their heart, they checked their pulse, they did blood tests, and they discovered that the people who were healthier were those working for 60 hours on something that they loved. So if you feel like you're contributing to the well-being of others, then most likely you're going to feel more resilient. And then coping. If you've been taught good coping skills, or if you've developed great coping skills just because of life, and then you are going to be more resilient as well. And then control is important too. Control means that you feel you have some control over your life, that life isn't just happening to you, that you can make choices, that you have choices to make. So those are the 7 principles of resilience by Dr. Ginsburg. And now we've got 3 questions on the slides. I know we went through this pretty fast, but we've given you some things to think about and would like to have you take a few minutes, and I'm going to divide you into groups, and each group will go to the slide that we send you to. The first question is, how do we create a structured, predictable, and flexible learning environment that fosters a sense of safety, respects each other's perspectives and experiences, and empowers them to grow competence and confidence? I mean, you're all amazing teachers, so I'm sure you won't have any trouble with this. And then the second one is, where and how do we give students the opportunity to connect and collaborate with each other and their own communities? We're actually not going to put you in physical groups. Just go to the slides and go to the question. And then the last one, what traits and behaviors should professors demonstrate in their teaching to minimize risk, nurture self-care, and foster connection? So just take a few moments and write a few answers to, thank you. If you haven't finished, don't worry. You can still write. And I'm just going to go on to the next part. We will return to these slides later on. And so what I'd like to do now is just start talking a bit about our class without forcing it. And while our subject matter is about noodles and food, so it kind of does relate to resilience, especially if you're talking about the dinner table, etc. We aim to make our teaching content relevant to the current crisis and to ask students to reflect on existing conditions and connections between COVID-19 and the studied issue at hand. So some of the things we asked ourselves: how do noodles come into play in our students' lives? How important is food during the pandemic? How has food disempowered or empowered our students? How can we find a way to utilize our course content, food, and other parts of our course to empower our students during a difficult world crisis? So really, we were asking ourselves, how does our material lend itself to talking about COVID or helping people cope with COVID and all the things that are going on in our students' lives, like illness, living at home with their parents again after being far away, interacting with people online rather than in person, no hugs, no comfort sometimes. And we tried to match our course content to what was going on in the world and create opportunities for students to speak about, and also create resilient activities as well, so that they could find ways to create resilience with themselves and within their families.
Before we get into the content, I just want to quickly show you part of our Canvas website, Canvas site. I think, you know, one of the principles is about building transparency, and then when we make the Canvas site, we were trying to make it really, really simple and really transparent and consistent with the same layout for the same content to reduce any kind of anxiety or confusion just by, you know, accessing the Canvas site. So I'm gonna share my screen. Could you make me a co-host so that I can share the Canvas site? And also Christine, that would be helpful.
So Hong, where do I do that? Where do I make you a co-host?
Oh, you participant?
Participants. And then you should have the.
Sorry, you all do this all the time, but I don't.
Click only and go to the 3 dot.
You know what? I'm clicking the participants and it's not listing like, you know,
I think you two
Click
can
only
also-
screen
Oh,
and click
okay.
the three dot,
okay, so I need to,
Yeah, there are three little dots.
three
There
little
we
dots.
go.
From there,
Up
you
there.
choose the course.
got it. No, request camera control.
You
I
don't have
think
Or
to.
you
share
can
and
also
control. I think
press
if you do a
claim
co-host.
host. If you press claim host, Christine and Hong, I think you should be able to be allowed as
Oh.
host. If you click on participant.
Okay, and we click claim host.
I've never done that before.
Oh,
but-
yes, I see it. I see.
Excellent.
You want to try claim host? It's under participants.
Okay,
Oh, there it is over the side. Okay.
let's see. How do I claim host?
I've got it.
Got it.
You got it, okay.
Okay.
Oh, actually, it's not giving me that option. It's invite and mute me and claim host. Should I claim host for someone else?
You could, if you go up, Sarah, to our names and go under more. No, that's not doing it either. I don't know what's going on.
Sarah, go to security on your screen, and on the security, say share screen. And that will allow everyone to do it, but we are in a closed group, so
Right.
that should be easier. You have an icon at the bottom saying security. Go there and it says share screen.
Security, but I see share screen.
Yeah, go there. Or you see share screen. I usually do it.
It's not doing it.
I can just describe it.
Disable
Yeah,
participants and
if
sharing.
that.
I'm so sorry.
No worries, no worries. You know what? I can take a screenshot and then send you a photo.
On the chat.
Attach a file. Okay, let me. Okay, I can just talk about it. So, so under modules, we have weekly modules, which is probably everybody would do in their class. So under each weekly module, we have three items. For example, week 6 content, week 6 readings, week 6 assignments. And then if you go in, for example, week 6 content, it is always a chart with the date and the content information. If you go in week 6 assignments, there is always just simply a list, 1, 2, 3, with the assignments on there. So our Canvas side is simply really straightforward. So that in week 1, students get to know the structure of the website and just go from there. I don't think we really have any questions about, oh, where do I find assignments? We make sure we link wherever it's possible to make it accessible to students. Yeah, that's the website. How about the syllabus, Christine? You want to talk a little bit about that?
Thank you. Thanks, Hong. So the syllabus, we include options and opportunities for negotiation between professor and students. For one example is the final paper, where they can figure out, they can follow their own interests and they can negotiate with us about what they want to write about. So we provide a lot of these moments where students have power because they have choice and they can negotiate. It's very comprehensive. We have a lot of support resources listed on our syllabus, and we're firm, definitely, but there is some wiggle room, especially now. We do have an attendance policy where we will deduct points if students from the final grade if they miss classes. However, we also have a statement that talks about COVID-19 and mentions that we realize that we have a strict policy, but that we're in a time, kind of a troublesome time, and that there will be moments when students can't come to class, and that we will be very open to what's going on in the world. So our syllabus is super clear. We've outlined everything, every moment of the semester we've outlined, we've given due dates. so that the students don't have any surprises during this time. And as a result, our students, you know, they feel a little safer as a result of everything being so almost micromanaged in a way. And so that's our syllabus.
Mhm. I'm going to talk a little bit about the different types of assignments that we use in the class. One thing is that we mixed low stake assignments with high stakes assignments. So the low stakes assignments are students reading responses and comments. We put them into groups and they post their responses and they have to comment on each other's writings. So the purpose of this kind of low stakes assignments is really to encourage students to share their viewpoints and share their culinary experiences, you know, connecting back to their family cultures, and also at the same time reduce the pressure on the students' part for having to get high grades every single time that they turn something in. And also summer courses are quite intensive. So having low stakes assignments also reduce some pressure on our part for grading, which I think is also, it's quite important as well. For high stakes assignments, which included the group projects, final paper and midterm project and so on, we adopted the +1 approach so that we can provide flexibility and choices when students do the work. At the same time, make them feel they are really contributing to the course content. There are several types of them. I'll start with the midterm project. So in the past, we asked the students to go to a Chinese or Italian restaurant, regardless wherever wherever they are, to do some participant observation and to interact whether with the restaurant staff or the customers. But this summer, it just became impossible or not safe to assign this type of work. So, and also during the pandemic, students felt rather isolated. They're either stuck in the dorm or back at home without their peers. So we changed the project to asking students to cook a dish that is meaningful to them, whether it has personal meaning, or cultural significance. And they have to write a reflection. We included the instructions for this midterm project in that Google folder, so you can access that. So for this project, we really provided a lot of flexibility to the students. They can choose the dish that they want to. They can choose a focus for their reflection essay. We also included an extra credit opportunity if they are required to take photos, but if they make a video with that, they get extra credits for doing that. Students seem to really appreciate this creative way of showcasing, their own culinary culture or learn something new that they are not familiar with. And then another way of providing some flexibility is in the quizzes. For each of the readings, students have to do a 10-minute quiz when they join the synchronous Zoom session. So we always included 13 questions, but students only have to, only 10 of them count towards the grades. And in the final paper, they also have the choice of choosing a topic based on their own interest. So those are for the high stakes assignment. Another consideration when we design the assignments is to make sure we have opportunities for them to connect and to collaborate. The midterm project, again, is another example because it allowed students to connect with family members and friends. Some of them had to ask their parents, grandparents for recipes, for instructions. And we also try to connect them with the larger community outside of our class. We put all of their recipes on the website, and we try to publicize it so that more people have access to our students' experiences and their recipes, their reflections, and even their creative writings. We recommended some of them to be interviewed by the Emory media team. And also they are included in the Emory online teaching video, which is produced by the Emory College online. And then they were interviewed by the newspapers, and one of their recipe was featured on AJC, and they were quoted by South China and Vice in their articles. The last assignment I want to talk a little bit is the group project. So students have to do a project for each of the units or the topics of the class. We try to make it not just the group members work together, but they need to interact with the whole class. So before their presentation, the whole class posed questions about the readings or other issues that they want to raise. And the group that's going to present need to go to those questions and then do some research to respond to the questions raised by the students. So when they do the presentation, they also lead the discussion for the whole class. Lastly, so now is the last one. The last assignment is imitation creative writing piece. So we read poems and stories about Chinese or Italian noodles. And one of the assignments is for them to write a poem or a story imitating the style of the writings that we introduced in the class. So this is really kind of a creative way for them to connect the readings to what they are experiencing now. They have the choice of, talking about the pandemic, talking about food shortage, or they don't have to. They have the choice of choosing something that they really want to express. And the fun part of this assignment is a whole class period, which I would call a miniature poetry gala, that they tell their stories, they read their poems. It is really a heartwarming experience that they all connect to each other. I still remember a chat from the class, students who are saying, those poems are better than the ones we read. So it really says something, yeah. I just want to quote just a short paragraph from one of the reflections for the midterm exam. The midterm project. I think it really summarized quite well the importance for empowering students by giving them the choice and by encouraging connection. The student said, in terms of the overall project, I loved it. The project and the creative opportunity it provided was something that I had not experienced in other college courses. It was nice to be given the creative lessons to choose a dish, form my own version of a recipe, decide if I wanted to make a cooking tutorial, and be allowed to take this essay in a variety of directions. I found this project a refreshing change from traditional college projects and essay assignments. And I hope to be able to do another project of this nature in the future. All in all, my family and I loved the meal, and I have already received questions about when I will be making this dish again.
Thank you, Hong. I don't know why, but I tried to put the pandemic noodles link there, and there are other things on either side, but just click, if you don't mind clicking on our pandemic noodles site. I just wanted to show you the result of the midterm project. So if you have a look at the pandemic noodles site, we have recipes in both, well, we have Asian recipes and Italian recipes.
I just sent the link in chat.
Oh, you did? Okay,
Yeah.
I did too. Cool. Okay, great. Anyways, we have pandemic noodles and we have recipes, Asian recipes and Italian. You can just go and drop down and have a look. And every single one of our students wrote about a recipe. And basically this was one of the ways we used to empower them, because they could choose any recipe that they wanted. We preferred that it be around noodles, but a lot of them took recipes that they had made with family members in the past. And as Hung was saying, they made these recipes together. Some of them called their parents or grandparents overseas and asked for the recipe and then made it for their friends. And some took recipes they already knew, and because of the pandemic, they changed the ingredients a little because maybe they were stuck in the United States, but it was a recipe from China or Korea or somewhere else in the world, and they didn't have all of the ingredients. So we talked a bit about what it was like when you had foreign invaders in a country, or when there was famine, or when there was a pandemic, and how you had to make adjustments, and that's how new recipes were created. And they felt pretty happy that they were part of a process of creating new recipes or rebuilding old ones. And they absolutely loved connecting with family members. Some of them cooked for their family members. And so if you have a look at the recipes, you'll see there's just a broad range of recipes. And when you look at bios and reflections, they talk all about what making these recipes meant to them. And you see there's one student who her grandfather used to cook a recipe for her when she was sick as a child, and her grandfather happened to be in the hospital. And because of COVID, she couldn't deliver this recipe to him herself, but she gave the recipe to her parents, who were able to get the cooked food to her grandfather. And it was almost as though life had gone full circle, and she was cooking that beautiful recipe for him. And we had some students, we had a student, let's see, I cannot remember where he was from, but he made a recipe from the country where he was from, and then he was living in the North End, and the North End is an Italian area of Boston, Italian part of the town. And so, sorry, I have people running around my kitchen. And so basically he took this recipe, he added pasta to it. It was kielbasa. And he added pasta to it, and he made it for his friends. Benny, honey, I'm giving a presentation, sweetheart, sorry. He made it for his friends, And then after that, the friends loved it, and they've decided to permanently change the recipe. So you see how they were active participants in changing recipes and helping recipes to develop. They formed communities. They cooked for their families. Some of them had never cooked for their families before. And because of this event, their families were so impressed with them that they said, let's cook more. We really love this dinner. Let's stop eating by the television. So there was a lot, and our students felt like adults. You know, they said, this is the first time I've ever cooked for my family members. So if you look on this website, you see how proud they are, the agency that they had, the recipes, how they changed them, and also the family stories around them. And then in addition, we had them put their poems, we asked them to submit their poems and put that on the site as well. And I'm going to share a poem with you. Our websites, before I do that though, I just wanted to say that our students are empowered to be creators of knowledge and content. They were shown our appreciation and pride as a class community. So we were super proud of them. We told them that we cooked some of their recipes. That was amazing. We also connected with the larger community, as Hong mentioned, AJC, SupChina, Vice, CNN. It was just a person found me and asked me to interview about pizza just a few days ago because of National Pizza Day on CNN. So the website is kind of creating a much larger community as a result. And there's a link to the website. Anyone who goes to these articles can then go back and see what our students have done. They feel that their work matters to the community, and it also helped to build the community, not only in our classroom, but beyond. They also have recipes that they can share with family, friends, and each other. A lot of them shared the website with family members who are across the ocean, and they're able to give that link to anybody, and they're super proud. As professors, we stayed empathetic throughout. We started the classes with, what noodles did you have this weekend? So every class we would say, what noodles did you eat? And then our students would raise their hands and they'd share something personal. It wasn't too personal, but it absolutely was something that they were pleased to talk about, and it connected them to us to them, and the whole class. So everybody was very eager to share the noodles that they ate over the weekend, the recipes, and talk a bit more. We responded to traumatic experiences in and out of classes. We would follow up with students by emails if their grandfather was sick, for example. Some of them actually had COVID. There was one student who, over the summer, she was in her room, she had come home from school, and basically the parents wouldn't go into her room, so they would deliver the food to her door. Actually, I don't know if that was the summer class or my spring class. They're all melding into one. Might have been the spring class, but Hong and I did the same thing, where students became concerned about this student. They'd ask her how she was doing every day. They would say, have you seen your parents? Or are they still leaving these meals outside of your door? We connected over what was going on. We would follow up with emails. Communicative, we're very communicative, reminders in class, individual emails, etc. We definitely, we know that a lot's going on and that it's hard to focus. So we reminded students even more than usual. And we were flexible, set strict deadlines, but gave extensions for major life events and quarantine. And as I said before, we appreciated our students. We told them every day how much we appreciated them and how powerful it was to spend time with them during this very strange time in our lives, you know, not only their lives, but ours. And we would probably remember them for the rest of our lives. And we bore witness to students' stories. And as Hong was saying, we had them write. And I just wanted to share one of the poems that our students wrote. One of our students wrote. Her name is Uma Alapan, and she wrote a quarantine poem, 21st century AD. We are in the 3rd month of quarantine. Summer days will soon get shorter. The pandemic will end. New adventures will then begin. Looking back on this time, only one word will come to mind: noodles. Cooked beside my mother with great love, seasoned with spices in honor of our culture and tradition from across the sea, and the bonds that hold together our family tree, which I think is absolutely stunning. And this wasn't the only stunning poem that our students wrote. As Hong was mentioning, some of these poems seemed even better than the originals that they imitated. So we're pretty much done with our presentation. Would love it if you would return to the 3 questions that we asked, and feel free to go to all 3 of them and write comments in. But we also want to open up the floor for questions. We can't thank you enough for joining us in our Noodle journey and pandemic Noodle journey. And we're always here if you have questions, but we still have some time, so feel free to ask.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, and thanks for being here.
Thank you. That was wonderful. That was
Thank
really, really wonderful. I
Excuse the
suspect
interruptions that I had.
that's great. I suspect there are questions, so I'll just throw it open here.
Oh, Alex, you're always welcome to take our class. Thank you, Viala, for your kind words. Does anyone have a question that they want to share, or a comment about your own classes?
Yeah, we're, what you do in the class to help connect students, build resilience.
I was going through the pictures of the food. Were those the actual dishes? That's
Yes,
spectacular.
those are
It's
stunning.
far better than most restaurants.
I
You know, where
know.
food pictures often look awful,
Mhm.
completely unappetizing, and those are really incredible.
They're
Well,
stunning.
We taught 3 sections of the same class, 2 sections in summer session 1 and 1 in summer session 2. So we learned a little bit of a lessons, during the first summer session. So our instructions become a lot more specific for the last session.
Mhm.
We give them, we wanted the photos to be certain resolutions, and then we also did some editing to enhance the effect of the photos before they were put on the website.
But they are beautiful. I agree. As you said, Nargis, you said you're salivating. Can't form a question. That's okay. And Mizuki, thanks for your kind words.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I think that they did a really beautiful job. And Hong and I were so moved by their storytelling too, and their poetry, and just, they reached deep inside, and it was authentic. It was, what they produced was authentic and real, and it moved us.
So if I may jump in,
Sure.
this is fantastic. It's a lot of, amazing energy that you're relying on for them to produce, having them participate in it. I wanted to probe a little bit in terms of your connection with some of these assignments and language learning.
So the course was in English. So
Okay.
it was 375 writing class. So really we focused a lot on writing in English, but we did talk a lot about culture. And one of the most beautiful parts of this course is we always have students who are from other countries. We have a lot of students from Korea. We've had students from France. We've had students usually we teach it in the summer, and they are all over the world. So what it actually becomes is a sharing of cultures. We not only learn about Italy and China, but we learn about the cultures of every student in the class. And that's pretty stunning. So I think Hong and I are students as well a lot of the time, because we learn from our students. And one thing we've noticed over the years, because we've been teaching it since 2016, I believe, is just how much we have in common with all of these cultures have in common when it comes to preparing food and eating together. And that really eating together ties all of these cultures together. Yeah.
So we in the Arabic section were discussing the other day, what are the measures, if anything, for assessments in terms of cultural imbibing. Culture is ideally imbibed. And, are there objective measures that are there for assessments?
That's a really good question. I mean, we do have outcomes that we try to achieve. What do you
Yeah,
think?
you
What?
go to the syllabus. We can go over the learning outcomes. If
That would be helpful, yeah.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to share my screen. What I can do is, might take a few minutes. I can download the syllabus and then attach it in.
And I think I have it, Hong.
You do?
The
Okay.
learning outcomes,
You
I
can.
believe, are right here. Learning outcomes. You will be able to explain at least 3 unique aspects of Italian and 3 unique aspects of Chinese cultures through the study of noodles and class readings, lectures, and discussions. You will witness and reflect upon the intersection of traditional and modern life through writing assignments and discussions. You will integrate into your consciousness the idea of using cultural artifacts such as noodles as a jumping off point for multicultural exploration through the medium of assigned readings and demonstrate this integration in your noodle projects and writings. You will explore how your own relationship with noodles reflects your cultural and social belief systems and identify how and where others do the same in discussions, projects, and writings. And we also had objectives as well. And I'm happy to read those if you'd like to hear them too. Is that, you want me to read them? Sure.
Unless others want to jump in with other questions, I'm sorry.
They're pretty fast, actually. In this course, through lectures, discussions, readings, and completing assignments, you will do the following. 1, increase your knowledge of Italian and Chinese cultures through the study of noodles. 2, witness and reflect upon the intersection of traditional and modern life. 3, begin to see artifacts such as noodles as a jumping off point for multicultural exploration. 4, learn about anthropological approaches to food studies. 5, learn about literary approaches to food studies. And 6, explore how your own relationship with noodles reflects your culture, your cultural and social belief systems. So fairly similar.
Mhm.
Thank you, Nargis.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I know Mizuki, you have a question?
Yes, it's actually a comment. I wanted to say that I really appreciate you, Christine and Hong, shared little tips that we can easily include in our course to be empathetic. And in particular, Christine, you said towards the end that you and Hong expressed your appreciation to your students every class. I think it's so important. It's not something I do on a regular basis. But yesterday, my students were so enthusiastic in my elementary Japanese course, and naturally it came to me to say, thank you so much for studying so hard for my course. And when I said that, everyone's face brightened up on the Zoom screen, and I felt the power of just saying a few things to share my appreciation to them makes a big difference, especially now that we are in this difficult situation. And I would like to copy your suggestions that have a firm deadline, but when there's, some like very difficult situation, I will be very flexible and understanding and things like that. So it was very, very educational. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Mizuki.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Christine does it a lot better than I am. And I think for me, being flexible, it's really a huge challenge. I am a kind of, organized person that if I grade something, I grade one assignment in one sitting, doesn't matter how much time it takes. So if any of the students turn in their work 2 days later, it really, really bothers me. So for me, it's a huge adjustment to incorporate this kind of flexibility into the course structure and really to be empathetic to what the students are going through. I think, just really communication is important. If they really describe their situation, and I would understand and try to work with them. One thing I think really worked for me, which was not too hard, that helped me to relate to students, is actually to really look into the recipes that they made, because it was a summer session. And one of the recipes is Taiwanese cold noodles with peanuts and sesame sauce. So I engaged my whole family. We made it together. We took some photos. And then when the class started, I was like, Dennis, we made your dish and look at the photos. It's amazing. I think little things like that really helped. I had a business Chinese class. So they were each introducing their favorite brand name. So this one student mentioned this popcorn. I forgot, it's kind of purple bag. I've never had it. So after she introduced it as her favorite brand, so I went to Kroger, I bought it. So the next Zoom class, I showed the whole class, look, I got this and it's delicious. Just little things like that. It's easier for me to do. But being flexible in terms of deadlines is something that I struggle with.
So it's so interesting that Hong says this. We know this about each other. I have trouble being firm with deadlines. So we're actually a really good pair, because by the end, we've got something that, is right in the middle, a good compromise. And I feel as though Hong keeps us organized and moving forward. And it's really nice to work with somebody who is different. I think the same type of negotiation that we infuse into our syllabus is the same type of negotiation that we engage in.
Yeah,
we've actually
we
had some of the conversations we have with our students before.
We are very different when it comes to teaching. I'm the organized one and the strict one, and Christine is the compassionate one. So we come to the middle.
Thing is, it works.
Sound right?
It's a wonderful challenge, and it's also a beautiful partnership. And I just feel very grateful for it. I think we've learned a lot from each other.
Yeah.
You had a question, Rukia?
Yeah, well, first I want to say hi to everybody, and I want to apologize because I have a class until after 4, and so I missed a lot of what's being said, but I want to thank you both. I miss you all, and it was such an amazing session. My question, first of all, whenever I've always learned from Hong Lee and from you all, and also attending the presentation, it always prompted me to think of imaginative ways of what to do with this. And I think first my question is, how did you start the project? What prompted you? Because noodles, Italy, China, it makes sense. That's brilliant, right? Food is an amazing theme. And also co-teaching, it's really a very hard thing, and you addressed that. But if we think about the language center, which I always respect, I learned a lot from the entity, the center itself. I was thinking, your course gave me the idea of, if the language center has to offer a course that's an entry, a gate course to all the languages that we are dealing with over a theme. Like, for instance, I think he gave, food is always a good theme, and we always go and give talks in conferences about food or whatever, or like, for instance, coffee or tea or whatever. is there a main exciting theme that would be so equivalent to what you did with this course and create it for the language center with all the cultures, Middle East, Asia, whatever, and have a theme where we can celebrate the richness of all the communities we are serving, following the lead of the course you have created. I'm sure I know we have a lot, and we are not ready to take upon ourselves a kind of project like that. But that was, what I was watching you, and also amazed at the work that you have invested in terms of designing the course for every day, in terms of the learning outcomes. So you addressed everything, and the aesthetics and the knowledge of the technology. It was amazing. Thank you very much. And I hope one day we'll do some course, and this is for Jonathan, right? As a course for the language center. And it could also,
Great idea.
when the students take this course, it goes towards what kind of requirement? What does it satisfy?
Writing?
I mean, yes, writing.
Yeah, writing requirement.
Okay.
And it probably would it definitely goes towards Italian, or does it go towards the Chinese major too, Hong? I have a feeling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow, that was amazing.
To-
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Rikia,
you,
for your
Rikia.
kind words. It's just great to see everyone. To go back to the question you first asked, is how we came up with the idea. Actually, it was several years ago, and both Christine and I were involved with Emory Scholars Program. And they had this yearly retreat. So they invited faculty to propose a session for the scholars. So after that meeting, I just went to Christine. I was saying that how about we do a session together on Chinese noodles and Italian pasta. So that was the very first collaboration between us. It was a 1-hour session for the scholars, and then we talked about the history, the culture, and then it just took off from there. So the first time we offered it was a freshman seminar in
person.
Was it the spring of 2016? And then we moved it online. So we've been offering it in the summer ever since.
Can I ask a practical? It's just sort of curious about the students who enroll in this course. Did you have to encourage them to be interested in food? Or were they just naturally drawn to it? Because I find sometimes my students are like, let's talk about baking all the time, because all I'm doing in the pandemic is I can't stop baking cake. And it's
not
in my head now. I just I turned into a foodie later in life. I remember in college going, oh, I'll just go to the burrito stand. And I think I would have been really interested in this. And I think
they love it, especially international students. And every year we could have, I am almost positive we could have had 4 sessions if we wanted to last summer. We have so many students wanting to take the course. And I think everybody's obsessed with, not everybody's obsessed with food, but a lot of people are. So, and it's something we all have in common.
Good food.
But I think this pandemic in some way kind of helped our course.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we only plan to offer 2 sections in summer session 1, and then we ended up having about 30 people on the waiting list. So we opened up another section in summer session 2, and we have total about 60 students in the summer.
Was it only open to Emory students, or to And did you have any TAs to help you, or anybody from the center helping you with setting up the technology? Wow,
it was a lot of grading and work.
Yeah, it's a lot of grading, a lot of work, and we enlisted some help to develop the website.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of you.
Oh, thank you.
Amazing.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, please.
So this was really inspirational, and I had to leave for a second because I had to ironically feed my dog. So I'm sorry if I missed you talking about this. But I was wondering if there were any students who were dealing with food insecurity and who had an issue, like even purchasing ingredients. Like I can imagine maybe some of them are literally subsisting on ramen, which is a noodle dish, so it would have been okay, I guess. But
Yeah.
was there an issue? And maybe if this is an issue, would there be an opportunity to procure funding or some sort of like fund for students who are unable to purchase ingredients? Or I don't know if that came up.
It didn't come up in this class. One student actually was in quarantine, so we had to wait.
Actually, more. We had students who just returned to China and Korea and who were in quarantine. And we also have students somewhere in Middle East or India who just also in quarantine and are not allowed to leave their apartment.
Yeah.
So if you look at, I remember there is one recipe. It's called something just whatever I had in my cabinet. So she just scrambled, put everything together and just say, you know, this is truly a quarantine dish. Yeah, then she talked about, I think it's Jenna. Yeah. So in the for that assignment, we didn't want them to go out and go to the store and get everything that's on a written recipe. Instead, you know, make adjustment based on where you are, what you have. And then make the dish your own. So there was a lot of adjustment made to existing recipes or something they just came up with that there is no existing recipe at all. So you
Spaghetti lasagna, one student made. It was a lasagna made out of spaghetti. I cooked it. But it was his own creation from what he had in the house too.
Can I ask another logistical type of a question? I've wanted to create websites and things with other students in the past, and I've been told that, and this was not at Emory, this was in another, you know, at another college. I've been told that having anything public facing with students' names on it could potentially be a violation of FERPA, and I needed to stick with the learning management software or anything. Did you encounter that as an issue, or were students given the option to publish anonymously, or did this ever come up?
We had a release form for all components that for this project and what we are going to put online. We can share that. It is an Emory release form. So there was actually one student who decided she didn't want to share hers. So her information is not existent on the website.
Yeah. And I think to go back to your question of before this, Didam, we actually, the first semester, we did acquire funds to take our students out to a Chinese restaurant and an Italian restaurant. But it was because it was in person. I think it's harder to do online when everybody's all over the world. You know what I mean? So that's why we had to be very careful how we worded the assignment and, you know, let students know that they didn't have to follow the recipe exactly, that they could moderate it according to how they saw fit. Any other questions?
Well, thank you so much. It's great.
Thank you, Christine.
Thank you, John and Sarah, for hosting us.
That was wonderful. And can I just say one last thing about the flexibility and whatever? I happen to have elementary age school kids in the city schools of Decatur's. mantra since last March has been compassion, not compliance. And, you know, that's very broad, but I do think that is a useful starting point or whatever. So
That's
anyway,
amazing.
everyone's
Thank you.
hungry right now. So let's thank you so much. One more time, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, everybody.
soon.
It's nice to see everybody. Thanks.
Yeah.
Ciao.
Bye.